All right, everyone, this is MetalAsylum.net, and I got to say, we're really privileged to be talking today to one of the most exciting bands in the metal scene today. If you don't know them, you should, but we're going to do our small part to help spread the word. We're talking today to Troy Norr, aka KK Fossor of the band Them. Troy, thanks so much for taking a couple of minutes to talk to us today.
Well, hello, my friends. It is a pleasure to be on your show. And this is Troy. That was KK. What's going on?
That's fantastic. Getting the cameo from KK Fossor. So anyway, I gotta say, we talked about this a little bit before we started recording. I gotta say, before we get into what the band is all about and what the storyline's all about, I gotta say, congratulations on Fear City. It's gonna be on absolutely on my best of 2022 albums list. It's this huge success of an album. So thanks and
Wow.
congratulations.
Wow. Thank you very much. I appreciate those words of encouragement, really pushing us towards our focus, which is creating, pretty cool music for people to enjoy. And we do, we create from our heart and our soul, and people that acknowledge that, that's a bonus for us. So thanks.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear you guys. Glad to see you guys getting some accolades now. So let's talk a little bit about. Well, actually, let's start right in with the story. I mean, I'm so impressed with the ongoing storyline. So maybe you can introduce the people listening or reading to KK Foster and some of his enemies and loved ones.
Yeah, sure. So we're on the fourth album right now, right? Fear City, which is what we're promoting these recent days. But Fear City is really just a fourth part of a continuous story, as you had mentioned previously. And it started off in the 1800s, and it's the story actually started off on the album Sweet Hollow. And a lot of people thought each album was its own concept, and that is not the case, as we just stated, that it's a continuous story. But Sweet Hollow finds this man who is, by faith, he's a warlock. By trade, he's a grave digger. He's a family man. He loses his family ultimately because he used his powers to try to bring back his baby that had died in the beginning of Sweet Hollow. And the townspeople didn't like that. The townspeople, viewed it as evil. They tried him in the town of Hemsmore because that's where he lived, and they basically had his family extinguished. They destroyed the baby because he was successful in bringing the baby back, but he was basically marked as evil with this inverted cross that was burned onto his face, um, so he could walk the remaining days on earth with the shame that he brought to his family. And his wife and his older daughter, Miranda, were burned alive at the stake in front of him before he was branded. So that's how the whole story started. And it continued and follows his journey with him trying to grieve the loss of his family, bring part of his family back, help other people. KK is more of like an anti-hero. He's not an evil man. He's very grumpy, and he's very you know he's very distraught with his emotions, and he's just trying to find resolution. And it really travels. He travels and takes refuge in the House of the Seven Gables, which is we call Manor of the Seven Gables on the second album. And there he's hunted down by the last known witch hunter named Peter Thompson, who hails from England. And Peter Thompson locates KK Fossor, and he basically brings him to the town square to finish the job, so to speak. And he goes to ignite KK as he did his family. And before doing so, he did make sure that KK knew it was actually he who killed his wife and his daughter at the Hemsmore witch trial. And that's how the second album ended. The third album started with his assistant, who was sent on a task to unearth and retrieve the body of Mary Hawthorne, who KK tried to save and sacrifice at the end of Sweet Hollow. But now Remsen comes back, his assistant, and saves KK from this, from his his fiery death. They both flee to Hemismar with the carcass of Mary Hawthorne to use in the third part of his plan, which was to bring back the spirit of his daughter Miranda into the body of Mary Hawthorne, the decaying body. There, they are successful, or so he believes. Peter Thompson, for a moment, gets knocked off focus because when Remsen was saving him at the beginning of Return to Hemismar, Remsen did so by knocking down a water tower, which extinguished the fire and thereby also washing Peter Thompson and his men away so that Remsen and KK could flee. So now in Hemismar, in the field, as they called, in the field of immortality, where KK performing one of his rituals to bring back the spirit of his daughter Miranda into the decaying corpse of, Mary Hawthorne. Peter Thompson and his crew finally catch up to him, and they're ready to finish the job once and for all. But this time, they're not waiting to burn KK at the stake. They're going to just shoot him right dead in the tracks. Well, KK miraculously, or so it was perceived, bringing the spirit back and successfully bringing back the spirit of Miranda into the body of Mary Hawthorne. She awakens moments before Peter Thompson and his men approach the field of immortality outside the town of Hemismar. Well, as KK is ready to meet his demise, Miranda, okay, the newly brought back Miranda, punches her fist through Peter Thompson's back and rips out his heart from the back and destroys the rest of his men, destroys his hunting dogs, destroys everybody. It seemed a little odd to KK because KK, his daughter was never, like that, and nor did he command his daughter, and nor he wanted something like that. But nonetheless, his daughter did it, only to find out a short time after that that wasn't his daughter. It was actually the Crimson Corpse, who is a spirit, an evil entity that wanted KK's soul from the beginning of Sweet Hollow, and that had tricked KK into thinking that it was his daughter that was brought or resurrected back into the body of Mary Hawthorne. That's how that ended in the end of Return to Hemismar. As KK is dying, being sucked into the ground because the Crimson Corpse reveals itself, sucks him into the ground, and he's going to die. That's it. This is it. He's over. He yells out to Remsen, his trusty assistant, "Don't forget your bloodline. Your bloodline, Remsen, your bloodline." And he gets sucked into the ground, and that's it. Well, Steamhammer Records released a one-off song back in December, which was a digital stream only at the moment, called Encore. And in Encore, there's an additional dialogue that basically states what Remsen actually has to do. He has to procreate. He has seed to sow. He has to create offspring, which at one point could be very extremely important in the survival and of what they need to accomplish. So KK realized that there was possibility that he could come back. He needed to have provisions put in place, and Remsen had to procreate. So now in 1981, which is Fierce City, how it starts, there's a toxic chemical spill that occurs right outside the town of Hemismar, and that brings back KK. He's slightly different. He looks a little different. He's slightly different. He's brought back into a different time period, 100+ years later, and he's back. And his focal point still remains. He must destroy Thompson and whatever exists of Thompson, because he was an evil person who destroyed his family. So revenge has survived, 100+ years. He now realizes he's in a new time period. There's this technological advancement that's so overwhelming. He doesn't understand it. He just knows that he needs to find the offspring of his assistant, Remsen. So he seeks him out. and he's located him in New York City. New York City, he goes to, and he meets up with Ronaldo, who's the great great grandson of Remsen, and he meets him in Studio 54 in a song called Retro 54 we have on the album. There's some dialogue
Mhm.
that depicts that. He but the thing is Ronaldo knows, once he meets KK, he knows that this is what has been passed down his generations, that he one day this may happen, that he needs to help KK finish out what he set out to do 100 years prior. So he knows the person that is the descendant that he's referring to, the descendant of Peter Thompson, because Peter Thompson died in Return to Hemsmore. So he knows that there's a Thompson. He's a Minister Thompson. He's a televangelist, a famous televangelist. Ronaldo doesn't know exactly where he is, but he knows someone who does, and that's Valerie, the streetwalker or the prostitute, and she knows him because she slept with him. So Ronaldo takes KK on their quest to find Valerie, to then therefore bring them to Thompson's lair. But while during their travels, there are gangs and thugs on their tail. They don't understand why. And through the use of the radio DJ, okay, which are two interludes, the radio DJ is actually part of Thompson's crew, okay, to notify Thompson's men with the whereabouts of KK, because Thompson is anticipating this. He knows this is going to happen. He knows it's happening now. He just knows through his bloodline, through his generational bloodline. And it turns out that Thompson isn't really a televangelist. That's his front. He's really the crime lord, the kingpin of New York City. So Valerie takes them successfully. But in their travels, one of them gets stabbed, actually. There's a song called Death in the Downtown Metro. One of them gets stabbed, and they have to flee because, again, KK's goal is at hand to, destroy the bloodline of Thompson. They get to his lair. Thompson's waiting for them. Thompson knew they were coming. And he basically tells them, I know I've been waiting for this moment. I know that you were coming for me, and I'm ready for you. You're going to stay here. You're never going anywhere else. Stay a while. Stay forever. And it ends on that cliffhanger. Does KK die? Who is with him? Did that person die? What happened? You don't know. We leave it on a cliffhanger, just like every other album before it. We're on the fourth album. Each album ends on a cliffhanger. It could either continue or that could be the end. We don't know. All right, I do know, but we don't know as the listener, as the person experiencing the concept. And from a thematic point of view, that's the gist of the whole thing. And then you have the musical element, which is actually number one in our book. Music is always number one. The theme or the concept or the theatrical element is number two. But coupled together, you have them.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, the music is a huge part of this too. But see, now I have 100,000 questions after all that, and
Oh boy.
I'm gonna ask the dumbest one first because I got
Go
this
ahead.
bit since I listened to it. I had to ask. So, is the radio DJ is she a nod to the DJ from the movie The Warriors?
Yes, sir. There's a lot of nods. There's a lot of tip of the hats. People might say plagiarism. People might say, copycat. Nah,
Nah,
we love
nah.
the 80s. We love the 80s. And throughout all the different, like, if you look at all the records, right, that we've put out, each album, like Sweet Hollow, Man of the Seven Gables, Return to Hemsmore, Fear City, all these places, they exist. Okay. They exist by pen name. Okay. But nonetheless, these are real places. Okay. And you have realistic parts that, or locations are usually like real, and then the fictitious parts or the story flows around it. And that's how I've been conforming the story, because I've been writing the story myself by myself, and I conform it using that type of formula. Location's real, and the story is just, it's fictitious. It's how it flows, but there's real locations,
Yeah, makes
and there's
sense.
Easter and there's Easter eggs. So there's the Warriors. If you listen to the opening clip, Exito, and Exito is really it's someone channel surfing back in that time period, right? There was no infrared TV control, or Bluetooth TV control or anything like that. They had to go to the TV. The person had to go to the TV and turn a knob, and the knob literally, the sound is what you would hear, click, click, between each station that you would go to, or one of you. And what the intro really focuses on a random person watching TV or channel surfing back in the day, and they're going through various program cycles, different news clips, different TV commercials. There's tons of nods to various 80s stuff, Atari, Coca-Cola, MTV, but just enough to give you a taste of it, not really telling you that's what it is. There's even a TV commercial that I was in as a kid, as a child, called Shoots Away, and that's even in there, called Shoots Away Night Rescue. And I was the one playing the game and saying Shoots Away. I even incorporated that in that as well. So there's a ton of little nods and little Easter eggs, and it makes things more fun and more interesting. The people that say, "Oh, it's copycat," or "it's plagiarism," or anything like that, they don't love the '80s the way we do. So, and the thing is this: if the story did move forward, it wouldn't necessarily conform to a cookie cutter that the first three followed, such as here you have the first three records are in the same time. It's like in the same time frame, meaning it's in the late 1800s. All three first three records are in the late 1800s. Now you have this one in 1981. It doesn't necessarily mean that the story is going to take place. I'm not going to say it is, or I'm not going to say it isn't, but I think people are going to say, oh, it's predictable. Now that it's going to be three records in the 80s, and then maybe the next three will be in the 90s. What? No, that's it. Could or couldn't. That's all I'm going to say. But I think I've always wanted to make the story very interesting and really encompass a lot of different elements. And something that has been injected into this is now this sense of time travel, but it really wasn't time travel. It was being awakened in a different time. So, interesting elements like that could pop up down the storyline. And, it just makes things so much interesting from the point of view of a listener who's sitting there maybe with the vinyl, looking at the pictures, reading some of the lyrics. It just makes things more interesting, in my, let things are more dynamic and less static, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I got it. So I got to ask, and we definitely got to talk about the music a little bit too. But I got to ask about the story. Do you have ambitions for telling the stories in other ways besides, as the concept albums, like stage shows or I don't know, web content, videos, books, comics, or anything outside of the concept albums themselves?
Yeah, so there are plans to create a graphic novel for each album, and there's also discussions about creating a screenplay for a possible maybe series where we can encompass both the music and the story in a visual and audio presentation, which would make things very interesting. Me personally, I could see one song on each album representing an episode of a season, and that song included in that episode, thereby almost making it like a heavy metal Rocky Horror Picture Show
Sure.
in a sense, but not goofy, like more serious. But there's some comical elements in what happens in KK's travels, but it's not intentional. It's just that's how the characters are, and that's intentional. The characters are just who they are. If they're a goofy character, they're goofy. KK's grumpy, he's grumpy. He's got reason to. He lost his family,
Right.
and he was taunted about the whole thing. So he's pissed off. And then he has some good, he had a maniacal Igor like, assistant. Now he has like this Tony Brooklyn Tony Brooklyn A's, elitist like 80s, Brooklyn guy, New York accents, and that's,
Right.
everything that we do, a lot of people don't realize, but everything that we do, there's a lot thought out. Okay, a lot of things are planned. A lot of thought has gone into this. People that will say there are people out there. Oh, it's a copycat. Lately, oh, it's a go. They're copying ghosts. They're copying ghosts. They don't listen. They don't really get into what we're doing, or at least giving it a chance. If they did and they didn't like it, then that's one thing. But just to write something off after listening to it for maybe 2 or 3 seconds is just they're just shortchanging themselves if they're looking for something that might interest them in a longer picture, in a longer time frame. Because the albums that we've produced and we've released, you know, they some are better than others, in some people's eyes, and other people love all of them, and some are slightly different than the others, and but that's all intentional, and people don't realize that. Like this one, there was more synthesized sounds or more keyboards that are more prominent in the foreground, as on the previous albums where they're more subdued and more atmospheric like, and just to help paint the picture. But now, because it's the 80s, well, guess what? Keys were a big thing. Keys, neon, you know, whether it's heavy metal or not, that existed. And we set the mood with the music. And that's what's the word? People brush by that, and they're only shortchanging themselves, and it's such a shame, because me as a I get really excited when people listen to it, and I've had people listen to it and they're like, I just don't like it. I listened to it 2 3 times, I don't like it. Okay, fair enough. And there are people that listen to it second time, they're saying, wow, this is really cool, because I'm picking up different things each time I listen, and reading the lyrics, and I'm picking up, these references to previous albums. And it's just I've had people that told me they sat down and they listened, straight through one album to the last album after listening to the, most recent album first. Then they go back and they listen to all four albums. And that's something that I like to hear, because that's the person who really appreciates, what we put into this.
Like, musically, there's a lot going on too. I mean, I hear your references, I hear your influences. I'd see. It's funny you say that, or shame you say that. I never think you guys as a copycat band, but definitely hear your influences. But musically, I hear like speed metal, and I hear like, classic heavy metal. I hear, of course, metal, a lot of metal stuff. But let's talk a little bit about how the musical elements of the songs get written. How does that? Do you bring your lyrics, or do you also take part in writing the musical parts?
So the music is primarily written by the band members. So the main composers would be Ule, the guitarist from Germany. Now, keep in mind, we're an international heavy metal band. So three members reside in Germany, and the other three reside in America. I'm from New York. The guitar player, Marcus Johansson, he's from Chicago. And then we have the drummer, our new drummer, is from California, Los Angeles. So, it's very difficult. We haven't played live for this record because of the times that we're still in, and it's still too risky, and there's too much liability in putting together a tour, because we have to, as a group, we have to put together a tour 8 months in advance usually. Um, Now we've gone on tour with as little as 6 months in advance, but we really need like 6 to 8 months, because of the distances that, how, we're on two different continents. So how we prepare, we all do our homework. We're all big boys. We do our homework. We practice. We practice. We practice for months. It's like Rocky, preparing for a fight. And then we jump on the plane. We go. We fly into Frankfurt. We take an hour and a half to an hour and 45-minute drive south to a town called Gundelsheim. We reconvene as a group there. And then we go not too far from Gundelsheim, and we rehearse. We have a rehearsal room there. where we'll rehearse for like 2 days, 2 days, 3 days straight. Okay. Now, a lot of the bigger acts, they'll do a week or two, but we'll do 2, 3 days. We don't have, we're not like these huge rock stars where we have these bigger budgets. So we go 2, 3 days, we practice, we put everything together. We know how our show's going to go. And once we have all that down, then we pack up. We pack up like a mini tour van and trailer, and we go. And so we have to know what we're doing. We were built for pandemic. We've written, we've recorded an album during the pandemic, and written another one during the start of the Ukraine war. Like, it's just like we were built to be segregated when we create. That's the point. And through like big disasters and big, situations that prevent us from, reconvening, we could still work, we could still create, and the story can still go on. So that way, now when we go play live, it will be that much better. And yes, we do bring theatrical elements to the stage. Yes, we do bring parts of it to help, visualize live, what the story is on paper and in music. So we do that. We do structure our live show. But as we go forward in time, it becomes a little bit more difficult because there are more songs. So we have now over 40 songs that we've written and recorded that are part of this journey. So to pick them, we'll say we have, fan fave songs that we have to include in the set. So, strategically, we might have to jump around the storyline, so to speak, when we perform live because of the placement of the song, because the song is part of a particular segment of the story.
Right.
So, we do have the theatrical elements, but again, regardless of the theatrics, it's a heavy metal show. It's a heavy metal concert, and there are times it's funny because a lot of the core roots of what we do is thrash metal. A lot of people say it's power metal. It's thrash metal. There's, a few of the members, their roots are thrash, including myself. There two of them. They also play. Their roots are like progressive metal. And our previous drummer was Angel Cote, who plays with Demolition Hammer now, but he's a death metal drummer. And the first drummer we had, Kevin Talley, he was a death metal drummer who played with Suffocation and amongst many other bands. But the point is, it's so funny. Like, them is like a cross between King Diamond meets Testament meets Slayer meets Blind Guardian. And if you take all those groups and mish them up together, that's them. And I think the copycat references started with King Diamond, because King Diamond, I also headed a King Diamond tribute band back in 2008 for about 3 years when King was out of commission. And we performed a bunch of shows, maybe a dozen or so shows, just something more for fun. And I remember playing with the musicians I played with at that time. I wanted to do something like something original, but heavier. Okay. No disrespect to what King does. Music is heavy metal. It's great metal. Merciful Fate is great. King, I think, is more progressive in nature than Merciful Fate. But nonetheless, both are kick ass, both are heavy. And we just wanted to be thrashier, if that's the correct term to use. And I
Sure.
think we've succeeded in that. But we have keyboards as well. So moving forward, initially, because our first album sounds more of a tip of a hat to King, in King's progressive style, that we were penned as a King Diamond clone right out of the gate. And as album 2, 3, 4 comes out, now we're the furthest away from that. It still doesn't matter. People say King Diamond copy, King Diamond copy. And now, as of late with this album, Ghost copy, Ghost copy. We sound nothing like Ghost, not even remotely close. And
Right.
the one influence that I have from King is the high falsettos that I incorporate into my singing, which I've done. If you listen to my last project I did with my high school early age band called Cold Steel, I used high the same type of falsetto highs in that as well. So, but then there was no makeup or anything. We just wore t-shirts and blue jeans. But the point is, I have many styles. Yes, I adore King. I'm not. People think, oh, people say, oh, like King is he's your number, your sole influence. No, actually, I have other influences. I'll tell you, Billy Joel and Lenny Kravitz and King Diamond and Bruce Dickinson and Rob Halford, and I love. I mean, even Mustaine had an influence on me at some point. But the point is, I have many influences, and I'm not trying to copy. I've told King this personally twice. I've met him twice, and I told him, listen, I know we joke around, people joke around, and you've joked around with us because he knows us, but he doesn't really say he knows us, but that's cool. And I understand the ramification of acknowledging it. So it just starts a frenzy. So I told him, listen, I am very appreciative and I adore what you do.
All right, hey everyone, this is Jack Mangan from MetalAsylum.net. Well, you also know me from the Am I Evil graphic novel and Metal Hall of Fame. But we are actually doing part two today. This isn't about me. We're doing part two today of with Troy Norr, aka KK Fossor of the fantastic band Them. Troy, thanks again for talking to us while you're out driving. If anybody hears any stuff in the background, Troy is driving.
I'm multi talented here. Thank you, my friend. Hello, my friends.
Yeah, I'm really impressed that you're what 300 years old and you can still drive a car. That's pretty cool.
Isn't that something, huh, Jack?
So we left off where last time we talked. Troy actually told us a lot about the backstory of KK Fossor because them. What's really cool about them, very few metal bands have ever done anything like this. I mean, Voivod comes to mind, but and I guess Coheed and Cambria, them have an ongoing storyline centered around character KK Fossor. Troy told us a lot of really most of the story about that. And actually, where we left off, I was really disappointed that we got cut off at the end last week. It wasn't your fault or mine, but you got cut off. You were telling us about your encounter with King Diamond.
Well, there was actually two of them. One was in 2015, where 2015 I met King Diamond. I was actually brought by a friend of mine, Monty Connor, who used to work at Roadrunner Records. Now he's on Nuclear Blast Entertainment.
Yeah,
and he introduced me to King during one of King's Abigail runs. So he introduced me, and I sang to King one of his lines in Mansion in Darkness, and he laughed and he said, "Now try to do that every day." And I said, "I can do it." Everybody was laughing. It was funny. It was actually a very funny, very funny, surreal moment. Well, I actually met King a second time with Merciful Fate, and that was just recently. And I got to talk to King again, and we had a very intimate conversation for probably about 15 minutes or so, because there were so many other people there to talk with him. And it wasn't a VIP; it was like an after show meet, which to my memory, King didn't really do that. So this is something new that he's been doing. Usually after the show, he would just disappear. So, I got to speak with the band. I got to speak, just to speak with King Diamond, and it was just another surreal moment. And I just told him, reinforced the fact that I in no way was trying to detract from what he did as an artist, and that I appreciated him as an artist. And yes, he was, and is an influence, but I also have other influences. It's not just King Diamond, but nonetheless, he does what he does. I do what I do. I'm not trying to, affect him in any way. But all we wanted to do originally as a King Diamond tribute band was do something in original fashion, touching upon some of the things that, influenced me to want to do a King Diamond tribute band, but now in a heavier, thrashier fashion. Maybe in some way the dynamics would be different as well. So he understood that, and he acknowledged, my sincerity. So that was the gist of the conversation. That was the gist of it. He was just, very humble. He's a very humble man, and a very, understanding human. So it was just we had a great talk. We had a great talk and a great meet, and I was just really really happy. I didn't expect it. I literally went by myself with one ticket, and I just met up with someone that happened to have the VIP pass, and I took it from there.
Wow.
I took it from there, and it was a great night. It was a great way to end a great night, and the band was amazing. It was a great show. It's Merciful Fate, so
Yeah.
great time, great experience, and that was just the second meeting. I also told him, I said, I understand why he doesn't really acknowledge the group them if he's asked in some interviews. From my understanding, he really didn't acknowledge them, and I'm okay with that. He knows who I am. He knows what I do. Um, I mean, even if he really didn't or he forgot, it's fine. I enjoy what I do, and I enjoy who I do it with, and I think that's the most important thing. And we just, we try to do what we want to do in our way, in our own way. So, and that's it. So that was the
Yeah.
experience.
Well, great. Yeah, and I mean the King Diamond and Merciful Fate influence. I would agree with what you said. I think it's obvious. I mean the band is called Them. There's obvious influence, but I also agree. I don't think you guys. I never listen to you guys. I never think this is just a rip off or a clone. I hear a lot of other influences. As you said, I hear thrash. I hear also some power metal. I don't know. I mean, if you hear that too, sometimes I hear Blind Guardian, maybe some Halloween. Like I definitely hear
So
other
some
stuff.
people say that we're or some critics would say that we're like a bastard child of King Diamond meets Blind Guardian meets Slayer meets Testament. So something like that. If that's a possibility of having a bastard child in that fashion. But
Right.
we've heard Blind Guardian before. It's funny because I mean I'm not a fan actually at all. I mean I acknowledge that they're a great band. I know of some songs, but I'm not I don't follow them at all.
Sure.
And in fact, I don't think anyone in the band follows them. But I mean that's a great comparison. I'm cool with that. you know,
Sure.
Blind Guardian is a great band, so I'm if they people hear that, I'm fine with it. But actually, it would be 100%, 120% unintentional because we don't listen to them. So
Right. I gotcha. Maybe it's the storytelling, and I think they
yeah,
also dip into thrash once in a while. So I think maybe those are the
yeah.
two. Um, but so tell everyone, tell us what have you and the band them? What have you guys been doing to promote? And actually, if you didn't catch part one, or if you're coming in late, we're talking about them also released one of to my mind one of definitely on my top albums of 2022 band, an album called Fear City. So what are you guys doing to promote the album aside from interviews like this?
Well, really, the label they have a promotion PR department that they work with other PR groups. For radio play, for print, for web, and they do that's what they do. So we myself and one of the other guitar players, Marcus Ulrich, the German guitar player, we'll do interviews, both print and we'll do interviews, like radio interviews, and sometimes we'll do like written interviews. So it's we do we do what comes our way, but everything ultimately is funneled through our label. So our label, that's why we have a label. So
Sure.
that they do their work. They do their work, and when we need to jump in, we'll help them in this part of it.
Sure. I know you, one thing we touched on in our last conversation is that you're truly an international band. I mean, literally with everyone living
Yep.
all over. So that's got to be a challenge for touring. Do you guys have any tour plans or even just live show plans anytime in the near future?
So right now, no. We were hoping to have something concrete. There's talks about possibly in the spring, but until the cancellations are like are near nil in the European area, we're just hanging tight. So we're hoping next year will be different, meaning next spring. But until then, we're not booking anything because still we need to go back to Europe, and then after that we'll come to the States. But right now, Europe is first on the list as a direct slot for a larger group. That's actually on our sites. We want to pick the right show, and I'm not saying we're trying to be picky. It's just that there are shows that are being canceled, and we don't want to invest time and money in prepping for something where it could be canceled because it just to book a show and just to plan on participating in a show requires a commitment, and we want to make sure once we commit, we want to make sure we could deliver, and the carpet's not pulled out from under us, especially since we're on two different continents.
Yeah.
So
I think that makes perfect sense. I think,
so
yeah, go on.
when things are normal, then we're hoping to play again normally. But until then, we have to be sure that we can play.
Sure. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, tell us a little bit about what you have in mind for the stage shows, if anything.
So we have included theatrics in our previous shows. So before the pandemic, we've actually gone on various tours from 2016 until 2019, and then once the pandemic hit, everything stopped for us. Of course, many other groups, and now has been picking up for many groups.
Hmm.
But once we start playing again, of course, we will continue injecting some theatrical elements in our performance. Live is definitely, it's about the music, and the storytelling is a close second. But we don't want to overridden our performance with just theatrics. But on the other hand, we also want to, creatively and strategically place certain theatrical moments that may highlight a certain point in the story. And we've done that in the past, and we'll do that again. But we have to be able to play. Now, we couldn't play at all for our last record, Return to Hemsmore. So what becomes interesting is now as we progress with our albums, we play again. If we play as a direct support the first time, first leg out or first two legs out, what's going to happen is we're going to have to strategically place songs from all the albums, and a direct slot usually gets maybe 6 songs, 8 songs tops. So that's going to be challenging. We have over 40 songs right now. If we happen to turn around and not play until the fifth album, then that will be even more challenging because now we'll have like probably close to 60 songs. So as time goes on, it becomes more and more challenging. Would it be great one day where maybe we had an event where we could play, major songs from all the albums? That is a possibility too. So, we're not going to say it's not possible to play a good part of the songs from each album strung in a fashion where it tells a story, and then you have these theatrics interlaced amongst the songs. But again, we just have to see where we are at that point in time.
Sure.
And right now, there are no shows for us in our immediate future. Again, if we look in spring, summer of next year, that would be fantastic. And if it doesn't happen, we just, it will be with the next album or the following year, because
Gotcha.
we just don't know yet what's going to happen. Like as far as what is next, are we going to release an EP that will contain all of the unreleased tracks that help help continue the story and help give some more details of the story, or do we release another album? So I personally would love to release 6 or 7 albums to complete the entire story. Of course, there's a beginning and an end to everything that we do in life, and the same thing with a story. There's a beginning and an end. I don't like having what do you call it, cliffhangers. but all of our albums have ended on a cliffhanger for good reason. Because if that's the last album, then that's the end. But if we can work it out with our label to guarantee that we can release, say, 7 albums, and we'll know that the seventh album would be the last album with this formation of them. That would be pretty cool in my book. I'm in my 50s. I feel like I'm in my 20s. I have no problem continuing, but I want to be also realistic and to say that I want to be, like I want to finish what I started on in my prime, as opposed to, sacrificing performance capability at some point. And I'm just going to be a realist. Sure, King Diamond, he's 66 years old and he's killer. But then again, there isn't any new material. I want the new material to coincide with the performance, and I don't want to wait, years in between albums or anything like that. I want the story to come out. I want the story to be out. I want a graphic novel to coincide with the story. I want the band as a band to be able to continue without me if need be, because the band is a great band. They're also younger than me, so they should be able to have that opportunity to continue in case I couldn't. Okay, and it would make things interesting, because then you would have maybe a different arc or a different story altogether, or maybe not. I couldn't answer that. So, but it does present different options. And the band is a great band. They're killer musicians. They're fantastic songwriters, and there's no reason. And I'm not saying I would definitely stop. I'm just saying I would like to have a concrete, solid ending to this whole storyline.
Sure.
And whether or not I continued after that with them or not, that's yet to be seen. But I'm not saying I'm definitely going to bail. I'm just saying I love doing what I'm doing. I'm going to do it as long as I can do it personally. And if not, I want to have the ability, I would like the band to be able to do what they can still do, because they are younger than I. I'm just saying that. That's, I'm just putting it out there because, people get sick, people die, people become disabled, whatever the case may be. I'm just a realist, and being a realist involves planning. And if I could at least finish the story the way it was intended, almost like George Lucas saying, "Oh, I wanted to finish my story," right? When he started Star Wars, similar concept. I would love to be able to finish the story, because I could write and record songs with any group, but these guys, they give me the ability to create something different than a traditional heavy metal band would create, and because they're part of it, and without them, I don't think it would be possible to create this style of what we've been doing and how we've been following it. So, what happens in the future? I mean, we have plans, we have aspirations. Performing live is one of them, and believe me, we want to play live. We can't wait to play live, but unfortunately, we have to wait a little longer.
And so it sounds like you have basically the whole story kind of charted out or outlined. Is that a fair statement? Like you know what the end of the story is going to be, and you've kind of got your eye on that, or is it still kind of being written? Are you still working on it?
So, in the very beginning, when I created the storyline for Sweet Hollow, it was originally supposed to be intended as one album, just one piece, one conceptual album. However, when I was writing it, I envisioned it continuing further. So I actually had not one, but 2 other albums spanned out, planned out, and plotted out, summarized format, where the story could go, and even what the titles of the albums would be. Okay, so I had Man of the Seven Gables and Return to Hemsmore titles of the albums when Sweet Hollow was being recorded. And moving forward, when we finished Return to Hemisphere, I always envisioned, to be quite honest with you, 12, 12,
Hmm.
12 albums. And now is that possible? Is that something that can be achieved? Sure, as long as I'm alive, meaning with me and my character in the story. So realistically, seven is probably uh, more sustainable, as opposed to keeping a single concept going, right? So I know exactly where it could go and how it could go, and I'm very excited to put it to pen and paper, but I am waiting to see what the label would like to do. I mean, of course, we could work with another label. We've actually fulfilled our obligations with this label. We love what they do. We would love to continue working with them. So we're going to wait to see final numbers of what the album did. We're going to see their thoughts, their views. Are they interested in continuing to work with us? We are. We would be interested in continuing to work with them. So, it's a matter of seeing what the next steps are. But nonetheless, it could continue. I already know where it should go. So, do I have the details of that story? No. But from a summary perspective, I know where it really needs to go.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I look forward. You mentioned earlier about it sounded like you already had your sights on the next album because you mentioned it. Talked about either thinking about an EP of unreleased stuff or maybe the next album. Are you guys ramping up for the next one, or are you still kind of focused on the afterglow of Fear City?
Well, if there was an EP, the EP is an offshoot. It's not a direct. It wouldn't be a direct continuation
Gotcha.
of of each album. Okay, it would be an offshoot. We also have a 7-inch vinyl called "Back in the Garden Where Death Sleeps," and it was actually released after. Let's say it was after Sweet Hollow, before. No, it was not after Sweet. It was after Man of the Seven Gables. Okay, and what it was is conceptually, it was an offshoot. What happened with Remsen after he left the manor through the secret staircase. Through the secret stairwell, Remsen escaped before Peter Thompson, um, surrounded the coven in the manor and apprehended KK. And then he comes back in the beginning of Return to Hemisphere and he saves KK. Okay, he was actually he went back to Sweet Hollow to exhume the body of Mary Hawthorne, who was sacrificed in the end of Sweet Hollow, and he brought back her vessel to be used in a ceremony that KK was going to attempt to bring resurrect the spirit of his daughter Miranda into this vessel, okay, to bring his daughter back.
Hmm.
And this was actually the details of Remsen's travel after he escaped the secret stairs in the manor. He went back to Sweet Hollow and exhumed the body. And there's some dialogue in this particular song on the 7-inch. On the flip side of the 7-inch was a cover. It was a Goblin cover, which was an instrumental, and that's a
Sure.
Dario Argento soundtrack band, right? Goblin is a great band
Sure.
that we actually adore. So it could be an EP that has some of the other singles that haven't been released. There were extra tracks, there were side tracks, but again, these extra tracks, there is some meaning in them, you know, and that's what we're trying to, if the EP comes out, it'll contain those extra tracks that were unreleased. But
Right.
a full album will definitely be a continuation of Fear City. So it would actually continue right where Fear City ended. It will continue from that point onward. Where it goes, That's where everybody else has to wait to find out.
I hear you saying if, so I guess you don't have any concrete plans for 2023 releases just yet, whether it be an EP or the
No,
next one.
no concrete plans. However, I know where everything will go. It's just once we have the green light, then we can make the plans, and then we could then we could put everything pen everything out, write everything out, map everything out, and move forward and work on it. But until we have that, right now, I have things summarized. I have whiteboard, actually whiteboards that I put all my ideas on, and that's where everything resides.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, it's
But
great.
a lot of fun. It'll be a lot of fun, Jack, to see where things go next.
Yeah, no,
A lot of
it's
fun.
gonna say it's great storytelling. Yeah, I definitely look forward to I think all of the futures that you just talked about for them are exciting. Whether it's you guys branching out and doing stuff that's adjacent to the storyline or continuing the storyline. I think all of it. I say bring it all on.
Yeah,
um,
we would love to. But we're gonna see. We're gonna see where everything lays, and it's we just go with the flow. So we're just waiting right now. Within a few weeks, we'll know, pretty much final numbers for the effort of this album, and then we could discuss plans with our label, and then they won't announce anything until we get closer. It's usually maybe like 6 months, 8 months before the album comes out. That's when they would officially announce, okay, them is working on. Usually when we go into the studio,
hmm,
and at that point the whole album is prepared. It's just a matter of recording it. Them will release their fifth album titled blah blah blah, and then that's when everything starts. All the gears start going into motion.
gotcha. Okay. Um, Well, hey, let's switch gears for just a quick second, and I'll ask you about not necessarily about them, but let's talk about heavy music in general. Where do you see heavy music going in the years ahead? What do you think we're going to get?
Well, you have definitely there's a changing of the guard. Say a lot of the original heavy metal bands, they're retiring, they're dying, they're just slowly um, just disappearing. They will over time, because everyone gets older, right? And music evolves. It evolves, and subgenres have been created and embellished upon. And in some ways, some things are cyclic, you know. Um, with music does tend to come back to certain roots, and certain things become popular. I'm thinking, uh, I would think that music, generally speaking, is or the heavier side over the course of time, more and more um, an electronic aspect will be injected into it, and that's just my view. I do love heavy, chunky, beefy guitars in my music, but like a band like Rammstein is just phenomenal in their presence, in their sound. Their sound is just massive, and whether it's live or on a studio album. So that type of style, very industrial like, regimented, industrial like, um, almost you do have electronic elements injected into that style. I think that's something that's going to become more and more prevalent. Um, you know, at least in the future, in the near future. But you know, you still have bands that support true metal, true traditional metal, and that wouldn't conform to that, because that's more of a newer generation. And but again, heavy metal, and heavy music in general, heavy metal, and just generally speaking, you're always going to have many subgenres, and these subgenres will be further defined as time goes on, and they evolve into other forms. Look at what happened with J-pop. J-pop became a thing in the U.S. where, at first when I heard like a band like Baby Metal, I just couldn't believe what I was hearing. I remember in the infancy and of listening to it, and some people would say, "Oh, that would never be a thing, never, never, never," because it's not metal, but actually the music is. So now you inject another style into metal, and you create this whole subgenre. Um, I mean, I'm not going to say that I'm a huge fan of it, but I'm I'm a kind of a fan because it's something new and different, and it gets people talking, and actually they became pretty popular here in the States.
Right.
So they accomplished what they set out to do. So you have metal branching off in different directions. Some are more successful than others, but I truly believe that some, this electronic injection into metal, I think that's going to be more and more prevalent as time goes on. Just my 2 cents. Maybe I'm wrong, but then again, you have guys getting up there, and I'm not saying in metal, just you have these DJs that get up there that command these audience of thousands of people, and they're spinning and mixing music. It's mind boggling. So where you could have one person do what multiple people do, or just someone who's creating electronic music that actually emulates a whole entire band. So can it happen in metal? Anything's possible. It can, you know. But I think the camaraderie of metal, well, the unison of a band consisting of multiple players, nothing could ever really replace that. But it can be embellished upon, and the electronic component can be added to it. Just saying.
Yeah.
It's an idea that
That's
that I have.
that no, that's really that's really well put together thoughts on that. I got to say, so Troy, we're almost out of time, so I'll just say really quickly, everyone out there should absolutely check out the album Fear City. The band is called Them. We're talking to Troy Norr again, who is also known as KK Fossor, the singer. But you have a couple of minutes, Troy. Why don't you take us out with some more words of wisdom? I'll put you on the spot to give us some more words of wisdom and some more thing people need to know about you guys. And the last thing I'll say is thanks so much for taking some time to talk to me. And part one and part two of this interview have been a blast. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. I'll end it on a positive note, stating that we do what we do because we love doing it. We cannot pay our bills, our day-to-day, bills, earning money from doing what we're doing. Yeah, it puts a few bucks in our pocket, but let me tell you, the rewards of performing what we create, we love it. We love it, and we are so into what we do. We're very passionate. We try to be very creative, and we try to think outside the box, both musically and thematically. And we're just so happy that we're able to do what we can do, and people enjoy it. That's what we're so happy about, that we're able to do this, and especially spanning across two continents. So
Sure.
as we move forward, we just hope we can continue to create music that everybody will still continue to enjoy, that we leave people on the edge of their seat when they're like, oh, what's going to happen next in the story? And one day where we could bring both together, maybe in a graphic novel format, or on a screen, TV screen. That's something that I would love to encompass, and we all would love to encompass the visual aspect too, not just live, but also, maybe in a TV series. That would be phenomenal. That's something that we would love to do. So that's hopefully that's something that could be attainable as well.
Yeah, I hope so for sure. All right. Well, again, thanks for taking the time. Thanks for promoting us. Best of luck with the album. It's fantastic. I think you guys are a great band. I hope I do catch you guys live one of these days. So thank you again, Troy. Troy from them, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, my friend. Have a great one. And thank you for having me. It was a blast, and I really appreciate you taking the time out. And everybody who's going to be listening to this. I hope you enjoy. If you decide to journey with us, I hope you enjoy what we've created. And if you do, that's awesome, and we would love to continue it. Hopefully, we can. And I sure am all for it. So let's see what them comes out with after Fierce City. But for now, we hope you enjoy Fierce City and everything it has to offer. We put our heart and soul into Fierce City and everything that we've done, and we will continue to do so. Thank you very much.